freshman year of college. I was 5'8", 156.3 pounds, a size 6, and I considered myself fat. Society has made us as women feel like being thin is the most important thing about yourself, and that the only acceptable size is a 00, which is widely unattainable unless you have been graced by genetics or you have an eating disorder. And that's the topic that I'd like to talk to you guys about today. I believe that universities need to include more educational material on eating disorders and host a mandatory yearly seminar on it. In the past 20 years, statistics show that the number of eating disorders has only increased. Approximately 25% of students on college campuses have some form of an eating disorder. That's 1 in 4. Look around the room. 1 in 4 students statistically have an eating disorder. I've been researching this topic for the past few weeks, and I found some really concerning statistics. According to an article published by LaGrange and Swanson in the International Journal of Eating Disorders, at least 30 million people in the U.S. of all ages and genders suffer from some form of eating disorder. But most concerning is that students with anorexia nervosa, one of the most common eating disorders, have a 6-fold increase in mortality compared to those without. I'm going to say that one again. Students with anorexia nervosa, one of the most common eating disorders, have a 6-fold increase in mortality compared to those without. If that's not enough to get you guys to care about this subject, then I don't know what is. So I'd like to talk to you guys about today why eating disorders are so prevalent on college campuses and what we can do to reduce them. So let's start with the prevalence. Why is this happening? It's because college conditions put students in a prime position to develop eating disorders. And this is because, according to an article by J.I. Hudson, published by the National Institute of Mental Health, the median age of onset for both anorexia and bulimia is 18 years old. This is not a middle school or high school problem. This is a problem on university campuses, on our campus. Additionally, the number of eating disorders within our age group continues to increase. In a 13-year study by S. White, published in the Eating Disorder Journal of Treatment and Prevention, it was found that the percentage of total eating disorders increased from 23 to 32% in college-age females, and from 7.9% to 25% in college-age males. This continuation is kind of confusing. Why is this happening to our age group, right? And this is because college sets up the perfect storm for students to develop these 2 common eating disorders. According to the National Eating Disorder Association, or the NADA, eating disorders are complicated illnesses with contributing factors ranging between behavioral, biological, emotional, psychological, interpersonal, and social. Think about it. All of those factors change the second you get to college. You're suddenly responsible for your own eating habits, your own workout routines, your own social influences. Additionally, in an article titled Stress Hormones and Eating Disorders by C. Ryan, it was found that stressful events and difficulties that evoke the feeling of shame may act as a trigger to eating disorders. Think about all the stress that we're under as college students. There's always a looming project, a presentation, a speech. And when you feel like you've done bad on one of those things, it can actually exacerbate your risk of developing an eating disorder. So what can we do to reduce the number of eating disorders on college campuses? Understanding which students possess a high risk of developing eating disorders and readily providing information and resources to them is the most important thing a university can do. Understanding which students are at high risk is very important, and the NADA provides a free screening tool that is essentially a short questionnaire that can indicate whether a student has an elevated risk of developing an eating disorder, as well as provide a help hotline and information regarding the next steps if you are at a high risk. I believe if universities include this questionnaire, as well as educational modules in their introductory courses, such as our own C1000, it will help bridge the gap in the understanding based on high school education. Additionally, I believe that universities need to host a mandatory yearly seminar on eating disorders for all athletes and members of Greek organizations, as well as open it up to the public. This is because according to the Collegiate Survey Project published in 2013, athletes and members of Greek organizations are statistically at the highest risk to develop eating disorders on a university's campus. Clemson Student Health Services already provides the faculty and presentation on eating disorders at no cost. Lastly, I believe that universities need to educate their residential assistants, their students, and their mental health faculty on how to identify a student who could potentially have an eating disorder, and then how they should approach that student about it. The NETA suggests that you should ask what you can do to help, that you should listen openly and reflectively. You should be patient and non-judgmental, and that you should talk with that person in a kind way. Remind that person that he or she has people who care about and support them. Oops. Now there's a lot of students that are unaware that they have an eating disorder simply because they are uneducated on the topic. I could give you a statistic on this, but I'd like to share my own personal experience with anorexia. Last year, my sorority chapter hosted a presentation on eating disorders. As I was sitting there, I was reading through the symptoms of anorexia and realized that I checked off every box. At the time, I was eating less than 500 calories a day, and I was working out 10 to 12 times per week. I had lost 30 pounds, and I was barely a size 2. Now, after that presentation, I had to go home and call my mom and say, I think I have anorexia. And she cried for a while, and so did I, but I was able to get the help that I needed and improve my unhealthy relationship with food. And I believe that if universities start this conversation and acknowledge the rising prevalence of eating disorders on college campuses, that we can reduce the stigma around them and get the students who are suffering the help that they deserve. Now today we looked at why eating disorders are so prevalent on college campuses and what we can do to help reduce them. I believe that if universities include more educational material and host a mandatory yearly seminar on it, we have the ability to affect over 1/4 of our student population. Now, really, all any college freshman wants to do is fit in, find their place here. But too many of us are killing our bodies to do so. Approximately 8,000 people die per year from an eating disorder. And I know that if I didn't receive the information that I did, when I did, I would have been 8,001.